do you get to go out and buy a Ferrari as the church's new vehicle?
Yes. Yes, that's exactly it.
Sweet.
All those wishes that you have, go out and do that.
I was
No.
hoping you'd say that. Well, hey, Dan, and everybody watching. Welcome to Distilled. I have a fun question for you today. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Is there anything in your life that little Dan would be totally floored to find out?
Ooh, yes, actually. And this is even something that Big Dan would have been floored to find out even a year ago. I have gotten into running, and so I'm actually signed up for a half marathon in a couple months and then a full marathon in a few months after that. And
Well, I'm going to be getting my Go Dan Go t-shirt ready and prepared for said marathon.
yes, yes, that will be great. And you'll also be very disappointed because you'll be waiting a long time to see me at the finish line.
I'll bring snacks, yeah.
Yes, yes, do. All right, today we are talking about 3 things to do now to finish up your budgeting year strong. And we've got a jam-packed episode with lots of helpful tools and resources. So I'm excited for this one.
Me too. Okay, let's start simple. What are the 3 things?
Yeah. So I'm just going to say it in 3 words, but income, cash, and wish list. So that's the 3 things, and we're going to unpack them in this episode.
Okay, let's tackle income first.
Yeah. So what we want to do is for your income, you really want to know where are you at with your income for the year. How are you doing compared to what you budgeted? Assuming that you use like a calendar year, so you budget January to December, then you're about halfway through. So how are you doing? From that, you can also project your finishing amount. We have a tool that you can even look at historic trends and kind of see where are we at pace for that and roughly where do we think we're going to end for the year. That will help you understand, are we on track? Are we behind? Are we ahead? And if you need to make any adjustments. Look back at your donors and your trends. And I know that this can be a sensitive thing, but I think you need to have someone in leadership and financial leadership at the church that is looking at your donor information and understanding that because it's going to help understand potential risks, just even knowing what makes up your giving. And so you want to know, like, who are your top 10 donors? Who are your top 25 donors? You also want to look at how much money do we get and look at the top, 50% of your budget of what you receive and say how much of that, how many donors actually was that. It's going to be a very small percentage of your overall donor base that makes up half your budget. And so you realize, like, those are the people that are really supporting the church. So it's good to understand even potential risks if people are moving or whatever that might look like. And there's a tool. So we have a tool I mentioned for projecting your finishing amount. And there's also a software called Mortarstone that we recommend that will help you get all kinds of visibility into your donors and even considering getting something like that. And that will help you understand, like, because they'll help you see like potential lapsed donors that have stopped giving or whatever, those kind of risks. And we've talked about in other episodes, this is not just about the finances. We're talking about that right now, but it's also about discipleship. But we've talked about that. So check out some of those episodes. And also, I'll mention our tool. It's a giving analysis tool. And you put in some historic data and you track your giving month to month each month for this year. And then it will help you project out where you think you're going to end up based on historic trends for the year. And so that's a tool that we'll have in the show notes and that I would recommend you fill out.
Awesome. And next you said cash. What are we reviewing when it comes to cash?
Yes. So we've talked about in our core 4 episode, 4 numbers that everyone needs. It's understand your income and then understand what's happening with your net operating income, what happens after your expenses. But the next piece is cash. Where are you at with your cash? There's a few reasons for this. One is just understanding the overall health of the church. What I'd recommend doing is taking your balance sheet and pulling it from where were our cash balances at the beginning of the year and where were they to the end of last month and what is the change. That's a really easy report to get. Your accounting team can do that. Just understand where the changes are. Do you have more cash or do you have less cash? And part of this is because you want to understand what's happening with income and then how much are we actually keeping after that. That's important to do. And you also want to make sure, like, there's nothing hidden because sometimes spending happens on the balance sheet. So you might look at your P&L and be like, oh, we haven't spent all the money, but there's actually spending that is happening. So you want to know where you are with your cash. That's an important thing to do. And we have a tool for this called the expense review tool. We'll include that in the show notes. But that's really helpful to go through and look at what's happening with your spending. And what I would say is if your cash is down from where you started this year and you didn't anticipate to spend more, then you maybe need to look at where you're spending your money and start to see, are there ministries that are overspending that we need to cut back some of their spending, rein them in or whatever? Or do we need to say no to certain things so that we can kind of get back on track for the end of the year?
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. And you said it. We have a ton of tools and tidbits in this episode. It really is jam packed. Okay. Last, you said look at your wish list. What do you mean by wish list? Do you get to go out and buy a Ferrari as the church's new vehicle?
Yes. Yes, that's exactly it.
Wait,
All those wishes that you have, go out and do that.
I was
No.
hoping you'd say that.
Yeah, yeah. You're like, I don't even know if I want the Ferrari, but sure, let's go do that, right? If we're gonna
Exactly.
wish. So, but what we mean is that every church has a wish list. They just might not have an official one, but there's things that churches want to be able to do that they simply can't afford to do right now. And so I like to pull that out mid-year and say, okay, where did we get to? If God is providing extra income, or if we have extra cash because we haven't spent some of the things that we projected we would, we might be able to actually afford something that we previously had to say no to. So whether you have an official wish list or not, I would recommend looking at it through that lens. Because here's the thing that will happen to churches is if you're not careful, you'll have some overage, you'll have some less spending, and so you have extra money, and it gets easy to be like, oh sure, we can do that. Oh sure, yeah, and you say yes to some good things, but you're ultimately still saying no to the great things that God has called your church to accomplish. And so I would just say now's the time to like really understand where are we at with our income, with our cash, and what could we maybe say yes to on our wish list that would help move ministry forward this fall.
I love that. I think that maybe our theme here on Distilled is we are big proponents of the great. We're here for the good, we love the good, but
Mm.
we're here for the great and the best. I think that's something that I've pulled out from what you've shared in many of our previous episodes.
And it's a challenge. And I think that's why is so many churches, they struggle with just like, well, we got to do these good things. And it's also like, it's easy as a church where you're like, this is clearly a bad, sometimes the decision's like, do this awesome thing or do this terrible thing, right? It's pretty easy. Well, the decision for churches is often like, here's a really good thing, but here's the great thing. And it's much harder to make that decision and to even realize that you're deciding between it. But when you become intentional and you're thinking about the most important things, really thinking about your mission and vision, then that's how you put your dollars on mission and put your dollars towards the vision, is by being nuanced to know what's the most important thing. And we believe that God really honors that level of stewardship and blesses that, and that's being a good steward with what God has entrusted to you.
Amen. Preach, Pastor Dan. All right. Give it to me straight. What is one takeaway or action item every pastor needs from this episode?
I mean, I would say do all of it, but realistically, just get started with at least one of these things. So if it's your income, go look at that and really understand what's happening with your income. Where do you project out? Look at your donors and just understand your income. Or maybe it's to look at where you are with your cash and use that to kind of understand where you are with your budget year to date or your wish list and pull that together. And I would say, I would recommend just keeping an actual list, like pull up a note or create something that you can just put things on there and prioritize them. And as people are asking for things and say no, and you have to say no, add it to the list so that maybe you can say yes at some point. So whatever it is that stands out, get started with one of those at least, and then go do the rest. Once you've got one of them done, just work your way through the others.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Dan.
Yeah. And you can get all the tools we mentioned in the show notes. So go to churchfinancemadesimple.com and you'll find links to all of these so you can download the tools, and you have links to reach out to us if you have any questions.